Hi guys, welcome to Style Direction, a menswear podcast without the stuffiness. This is your host, Ethan M. Wong, I should say.
I'm Spencer, DSO. I have two middle names. That's more than one. Better than Ethan.
Better than Ethan?
That's what they say. Two middle names is better than one.
Do they call you the gamer in question too? That's
no, that's just you. That's just you're the only person that calls me that.
By the way, guys, if you haven't been watching our Twitch streams, you should. It's like an extra that's like the real bonus content, except unlike our Patreon, it is free for you. You get to
That's right, twice a week.
Twice a week talking about menswear. Hopefully we don't run out of topics.
Yeah, what did we talk about Saturday?
We talking about press time? Because I don't know what we're talking about in the future.
Well, what did we talk about Saturday? As in, 2 days ago? Don't remember what we talked about.
Oh, well, it's about berets.
It's about berets. We talked about berets on Saturday.
Yeah, but this is a Saturday in the past. This is like 3 weeks before you're hearing this. So if you haven't seen that
we talked about this in the past, but that's just a preview of what you get in the future.
That's right. Well,
that's what they say about the past.
Welcome to the future, bitch. Have a sip. What's it taste like?
Water. I don't know.
There you go.
People don't know about that. I don't think that's been publicly released. I mean, it's on Facebook, but...
Yeah, but we all know how Facebook sucks with finding, old videos. I mean, I couldn't get the baby Ethan one where I pooped my pants. That one took a little while to...
That's just a weird way to put it. That's a weird way.
If you guys, I feel so bad for people who are watching this for the first time because watching.
I hope not.
FBI man in our little webcams here.
CIA man, the Fugs, good band. Listen to him.
Is that a bad word?
No, it's FUGS.
FU.
GS.
Yes, that's right. Well, so for those of you who are coming for the first time, this is a menswear podcast. We talk about menswear topics and sometimes interesting people, as you have seen.
We talk about interesting people. Yeah,
for the month of July, we talked to Young Chomsky.
That's right. We're gonna have another guest on. We're gonna have another guest on our friend Aldous from the streams and from one of our more popular early episodes. I'm not saying more popular early episodes. I'm saying it's one of our more popular episodes, but it's also early.
It's also an early one. Yeah, a lot of people.
But he's going to be back on talking about watches. Do we have anything else coming up? I think that's it.
No, but hey, that's all for the future. Today, we are talking about something very big that if you were also watching us last month in July, you'll know that this was a big topic, the subject of a 2-hour stream, basically, and a lot of other conversations.
A week of debate before then.
Quotations. Yeah. But we're talking today about the button pocket harmony, and I have that capitalized because it is a noun to me. It is a very important thing. And, okay, so if I could, give a little background to this, and hey, there are show notes. It's actually, well, it's not really even show notes. It is a literal essay on this very subject that happened to coincide with this podcast episode. But no, so I got started, collecting vintage menswear. And as Spencer and I have said before, we got most of our menswear knowledge from collecting vintage menswear. And not just
that's given us some weird, buying quirks or something, weird stuff that we look for.
Yeah. And I mean, so first off, it not only does it let us think about things in terms of eras, that's a very 50s lapel, that's a very 50s shape, but also like specific things, because there's an old article I wrote maybe 2017. It's called it's menswear details they don't do anymore. And I talk about swelled edges. I talk about the spear point collar, belt backs, and everything. And those are fairly noticeable, compared to some other stuff. But this one, the button pocket harmony, basically refers to when the pocket line, the top of the jetted pocket, the top of the patch pocket, whatever you want to call it, is on the same horizontal plane as the bottom button of your jacket.
And have you ever talked about this on your blog before?
No.
Obviously, other than the blog post that's coming out with this. But this is something that's kind of been knowledge for people who know you in real life.
Yes, yeah. I mean, hasn't really been overtly discussed. But if you look back at one of my first articles about vintage clothing, which is in 2016, A General Guide to Vintage Menswear, in there and in the presentation that we did like the year afterward for Dapper Day, you can see that video on YouTube. But we basically talk about how for each era, when you look at like 30s and 40s jackets, the button pocket harmony is technically present. The pocket and the button are in the same line. But as you get later on, later and later in the years, basically in like the 60s, 70s, the button stance kind of gets lower. But even if the buttoning point didn't get that much lower, the final button goes beyond the pocket line. And so for us, it was like a general way of knowing the general age or era that a garment was made in, apart from, literally look at the union tag. Because even then, even before, a couple of vintage guys would wear like 60s, 70s jackets that looked fairly close to 30s and 40s. And even if the union tag was off, you would look at the lapels, you'd look at like the shoulders to kind of see that. And one other thing was that you would look at the button pocket harmony or lack thereof. And it's something that I've, like as Spencer said, I've internalized for years of buying vintage and collecting things, because it was just so easy to look at a jacket and be like, okay, this thing has it, and so I should get it, or it checks more of my boxes or something, And the thing is true, where you look at a lot of 30s and 40s jackets, tailoring, whatever, they all, for more often than not, they have the button pocket harmony. Some jackets might not have it, especially as you get to like the mid to late 40s, you really, you don't see that as often. You see like the buttoning, the last button goes past the pocket line, but generally speaking, it's present there. And in the early 20s or early to mid 20s, the buttoning was actually above the pocket line, But we talk about in the 30s and 40s where things kind of mellow out and become kind of the gold standard for what we consider to be classic menswear today. It's present, so of course it's gonna be there, and so it's a great way, at least for me, to kind of mitigate me buying other things, because we've talked about this on the stream before, where a couple of guys, especially when I started my blog early, would they'd thrift a tweed jacket and be like, oh look, I'm gonna be Ethan, I'm gonna be cool and vintage. But then it's not just that you're buying a tweed jacket. If you've got like a low buttoning point or the lapels are weird, it just doesn't look the same. It's like there's a lot of qualities of a jacket that when you can't unsee it once you take notice of it.
And so I think, people probably have a pretty good idea at this point of what it is. And
you can
maybe
look at the pictures.
Yeah, exactly. And how you came to kind of discover it. But do you want to, let's get into like why this is such a big deal for you. Because I feel like, most people understand that this is a preference, but the thing that people get confused about with you
is how important it is.
Yeah, how it's like one of the only things that really decides, like,
because
if you're going to buy a jacket. Because if it doesn't have it, you just pass it over.
Yeah, so if you didn't know that, I do that a lot. It's less common now because I buy a lot more modern stuff, but I'll get into modern in a second. So, yeah, it's first off, like I said earlier, it's kind of just a thing that you saw in 30s jackets. So, like, if it doesn't have that, then it inherently, to me, doesn't have, like, that golden era classic look to it. So that's automatically, like, a number one thing. And number two is that, to me, a jacket should be proportional to itself. And, when I think
that's where you lose people, too.
Yeah, because a lot of people focus on, like, the buttoning point overall, right? Like, it bisects a jacket or whatever. But if you're looking at it, and you see like, okay, like, if you've got like a ruler or whatever, and you're bisecting all the stuff, and then you have like the buttoning kind of not aligned with it, it just looks off to me. It's not an inherently. I say that it looks bad, people, because it is bad to me, but it just looks for the sake of the title, it looks inharmonious to me. It just doesn't look right. A lot of tailoring is built on like, these, the high-waisted trouser, it sits higher on the waist, so then you elongate your legs. There's like the shoulder line, how an extended shoulder can create a V thing. So for me, with the buttoning in the same line as the pocket, it looks like, quote, normal to me, and when it goes past that, it has the illusion of a lower buttoning point, even if the buttoning point, the middle button, whatever you want to call it, is in the the correct place, but visually it looks off to me, especially when you compare the distance between the pocket and the bottom hem, and then the button to the bottom hem. There's like a weird thing there that it just looks weird to me. It's just a weird thing that as maybe it's because I'm a shorter guy, so a lower buttoning point or the visuals of a lower buttoning point don't look flattering to me. It could also be that in the 70s and 80s, those jackets have a lower buttoning point, or at least an inharmonious pocket line, and on me it looks weird because again I'm shorter. It's just there's a lot of pictures I also put of like really bad examples of it, or I guess good examples for me to not do it, from like the 70s and 80s. But the reason why this kind of came about, and I can get into that now, is because so this has come up a couple times before, and so most of my friends who get me or who take my word as God, which you shouldn't, by the way, tend to just accept it. Like our friend Andy, I think, has sent us a couple of pictures of like, hey, is this a good jacket? And I'm like, no, it's not. And he goes, okay, cool, I'll skip it. They're fine. But the original reason why this kind of came back onto my discourse was my friend Doug bought for like $10, super cheap, even cheaper than like probably like Goodwill or whatever. He got like a 70s
H-bar-C Western jacket.
Yes.
But it was a Western blazer specifically, so it had the brass buttons and everything.
It was like dark brown, I think. It's not navy blue. It has like a yoke. So it's again Western. It has like yoked pockets, and then it has two buttons, two button closure and brass buttons. So it is a blazer. It's like a very prep music. It's cool. The idea of it is cool.
It's definitely it's a very cool jacket. It's like it's from the 70s, which means it has a slightly lower buttoning stance. It's also a Western jacket. You don't typically see those with the pocket harmony thing.
Right. And he sent it to us, and he's like, guys, what do you think? And I'm like, oh, I don't like it. And he goes, why not? And I'm like, well, the pocket goes beyond the thing. And he was saying like, oh, he's defending it. And these are valid defenses to it, where they say, well, the buttoning, the waist button, the middle button is where it's
is
supposed
in the
to
middle
be.
of the jacket.
I'm like, yeah, that's true. But, to me, a jacket exists two ways simultaneously. It exists as a garment on its own and on your body, and both of those things together.
And you don't know which one until you observe it.
Yeah,
that's Schrodinger's jacket.
Schrodinger's pocket button harmony.
Yeah.
But
inside your pocket, you're gonna find a vial that contains some uranium. What's in Schrodinger's box? I know there's a cat. What kills the cat?
I think it's just arsenic. And it releases it, and then like either the gas kills the cat or the cat eats it. Like I think it drops the poison into the food inside the box.
The point is, you don't eat poison. That's if the podcast had one message this week.
Hey Matt, I know you're writing these down, and don't get on mic, but write that one down. Don't
make sure people know. Don't eat poison.
Yeah, exactly. But no, Doug was, he was very defensive over this thing. I was just like, yeah, I get it. I know what you're telling me. I'm just saying I don't like it because of the button pocket thing. It just, even if the middle button is there, it just looks off to me in terms of the jacket's proportions to itself. And a lot of people agree. Like people generally agree it looks off. It's just it's more of a matter of how important that is to you, because some people just look at the buttoning point itself, which brings me to the next point, where Algis, again, we teased them earlier with the watches, watch episode coming out in the future, but he bought a J-Press jacket that had, that was nice. It's like a brown and orange check. It's like based on an
old. It's English. It's very English.
Yeah.
It's not like preppy.
Yeah. So unlike so there is a 1930s jacket very similar that I've seen also back in the days of like Fedora Lounge or men's or the vintage menswear group on Facebook, where it was another J-Press jacket with orange plaid that was 3-roll-2, had like patch pockets, very very trad ivy, whatever you want to call it. So this one is similar to that, except it's more English. It's got two buttons, kind of like a broader shoulder. The lapels are different because it's 2-button, and it has a ticket pocket. And because it's 70s, pockets. Yeah, hacking pockets, yeah. And in addition to that, it also has a doesn't have the button pocket harmony. And I was like, okay, I was like, same thing. Hey guys, got this jacket. What do you think? And I'm like, nope.
I'm gonna say that the source of these two arguments in retrospect, was not about the jacket, but about your use of hyperbole. So maybe we should have a special episode about the way that you speak to people.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, I think it's just because everyone just...
Like, I mean, it's like, again, it's like, I do this too. I'm not calling you out, but both of our friends were telling us, like, the issue isn't the jacket, it's that you called the thing that I bought bad.
Yeah, and then I mean, I'm very humbled that you think that my opinion matters so much that I call it bad, and now you're like, because they both are like, "What would you throw the jacket on?" I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. You can wear whatever you want, dude. But it's just, it kind of, it spurred a very big debate on this because when I call something bad, people expect me to have a list of objective critiques about why this is bad, and I've told them it just looks disproportionate to me. I don't care where the button placement is because in my defense, a lot of jackets inherently have a normal buttoning point and the button pocket harmony. Like it's kind of like, it's almost, to me, it's almost like a designer or a maker went out of their way to change this kind of pattern, whatever you want to call it.
Because I mean, it's like the other reason people kind of get defensive about this is they say it's like, oh, well, how are you, like how many jackets actually have this? Like, you talk about it being a 1930s detail and you kind of expect it to be very difficult to find. But it's, as you're hinting at, a lot of modern brands still do this today.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, it's basically points to people, the makers who don't do the pocket line have some hate looking proportional, and they go out of their way to do it. I mean,
it's like a lot of makers that have a dropped buttoning stance. They do have a reason for it. They say it's like, oh, it elongates your torso, it makes you look more athletic, whatever.
Yeah, there is also an article by Mitchell Moss, I think. He's Menswear Musings, and he talks about having a longer V, longer lapel line, as they call it, which would technically have to involve an inharmonious button pocket line because you want to elongate that visual V, that opening, which I get, and I think that at the end of the day, it always becomes like a very intentional detail, right? Because I can forgive it. I'm not forgiving anybody, but I can understand it more when it's intentional. Because I think what a lot of guys who tend to defend this are guys who don't notice it, and I think that that's also one reason why I'm defensive on my side about it. Because if it's something you notice after the fact, it just points to me that you're not looking entirely at your jacket. It's like how maybe a guy will buy a jacket and then the gorge is super high, which I think most people, at least for people who listen to the podcast, or at least our friends, will agree that a very high gorge isn't that flattering, or it just doesn't look as cool. It's just kind of like a more modern inflection. Although, you've seen high gorges in like the 70s. So, it's not weird. We just don't like it. You might even say we call it bad. But, so in this case, it's kind of like, when I was talking to Doug, it's that for me, I take in every possible configuration on a jacket, and I notice everything about it, because all of these things contribute to what you look like visually. They contribute to what the jacket proportions are, and I'm sure a tailor could also tell you, people who read at tailoring guides or whatever will tell you all of these things have a reason. They might not be correct. I'm not saying that the button pocket harmony is like the ultimate version of a jacket. I mean, to me, it is. But, it could just come down to maker preference. And a lot of makers that I've seen follow that. And I think that I'm pretty sure I've seen like a cutting guide from like the 30s that said something about it. I'm not entirely sure, but when I posted this on Instagram, quite a few people were like, oh yeah, like that's it. Like, it looks proportional. Number two, as like a kid who was studying tailoring was like, yeah, I mean, I've noticed this and it just looks good to me. Spear and McKay has said that their factor that they use has that inherently for their modeling, so that's kind of cool. And as Spencer said, there are some makers who intentionally go against that. And one tailor friend of ours, UC from Finland, I think, or Sweden. He works with Eric Manby. He says that he intentionally doesn't do it because when it's on the same horizontal pocket line, it creates too much horizontal harmony. Where if you have a guy with
draws attention
to the midsection. Yeah, exactly. So I can see it there. Or where obviously, you know, if you drop the buttoning line, you emphasize the chest more than the center part, which, you know, is an intentional choice. And he also says that when you look completely at least with like contemporary Neapolitan tailoring guides, they're not exactly the same pocket line if you took like a ruler, but, and you can see this in some pictures that I have, sometimes that the last button goes a little bit past the pocket line. It's like maybe like a centimeter or a centimeter and a half, which is not as bad as some other examples like Aldish's ones, but they tend to do that because patch pockets can be curved, and so like the curving of a pocket can kind of mess up, you know, the visual harmonies, I guess, as well.
Well, speaking of pockets, what about flaps?
Oh, well, hey. So if we're talking about how a patch pocket today is kind of curved, right? So that kind of, you know, the button won't match up with it. Also, one thing, 1930s patch pockets weren't exactly as curved as the ones we see today.
But also 30s patch pockets were like fucking huge and took up more of the jacket. Yeah. So there's a lot of 30s patch pocket jackets that don't have this harmony, even if it's a very similar buttoning stance to maybe something with like a flap pocket or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it also comes from the fact that you start off collecting flap pockets or jetted pockets, where this is much more common, I think, to find.
Yeah, because most 30s jackets, were like jetted pockets a lot.
Even if they were sport coats, yeah. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you did see patch pockets, sometimes they are harmonious there. But so as Spencer's alluding to, when you look at the 70s and you look at flapped patch pockets in general, there sometimes you saw it on the same line as the top of the flap, but more common was it to be were for the button to line up with the start of the pocket, like the actual pouch, but not the top of the flap. The flap would actually be above that. So
it's technically in line with the pocket line, but visually it doesn't look like it.
Because the flap is slightly above it. Yeah, and again, you can look at the show notes and see all these pictures there. And the thing is, all my jackets, full disclosure, all my jackets follow this harmony. All of them. It doesn't matter if they're vintage from the 30s. Doesn't matter if they're vintage from the 70s. Doesn't matter if it's made to measure now.
I mean,
or
you've said that you've I don't know, maybe with the exception of like one or two things, you've never bought a jacket without this. That's even the case like very early on? I mean, I guess other than like H&M suits or whatever.
Don't think. I'm sure that there was some thrifting stuff that I did that was past it, but there is no visual evidence.
Okay.
I mean, again, I consider the start of, you know, my menswear journey more like when the blog started getting good, maybe like late 2016. And I think from like that point on, I was more like dialed into what it is. And I mean, again, you look at even like Suit Supplier, Spear and McKay, at least in terms of the jackets I've picked up, the button pocket harmony is present. You know, it's just I'm not crazy. Like it's
I'm not crazy here.
Yeah, it's
like the reason that you're talking through most of this is because you care about. I mean, it's like even if this is a detail I care about this is a detail that you care about infinitely more than me.
Well, I think it's because people want my opinion, or they ask us, and I'm more inclined to say I don't like it, while most people may, you know, again, hey, maybe we need to teach each some manners here, you know, just lie and say, oh, it's great, dude. But I mean, again, like, you know, I mean, so you have this thing too, right? I don't think, you know, what are your thoughts on the whole thing?
So this is when I buy vintage jackets, I would try to go for. So I guess my take on this is, if I'm spending a more significant amount of money, it's something like the more money I spend, the more I care about it.
Right, of course.
So there were a bunch of jackets. I mean, like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 jackets that I bought from. Actually, no, I think I only have. I bought a jacket from J. Crew. I only have one J. Crew sport.
Oh, yeah, J. Crew, notorious for not doing this.
Did not. Yeah, they intentionally don't do it. That has a lower buttoning stance. I got that.
Overall,
early on. Yeah. Early on, I was into bold look stuff. Again, I think I've said this because I tricked myself into liking it because it's the cheapest vintage you can get.
Yeah, that's right.
But all of that had like super dropped buttoning stance. And I still have some like 60s and 70s stuff that doesn't have it. But for the most part, all my more expensive pieces, the stuff that I really like does have it.
That has the harmony. Well, I was going to say that, again, this isn't really about buttoning stance. It's just about buttoning placement, because there are definite examples of jackets that have a low buttoning stance but still have the pocket button harmony. I think Sichio from Ueki-san has a very lower buttoning stance, and I explained to all this. I was like, well, I don't like the jacket because he thinks that he's put the waist of the jacket too low, which is fine, because I mean, again, it's all about style.
In terms of like button placement, I guess maybe what I care about more is width, because like I would never get one of those like 70s or 80s jackets that you see that have the dropped button stance, but also the buttons are close
too
together.
Close. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah,
I hate that. If it's like just a little bit below the pocket, but it still has like widely spaced buttons, I'm fine with that. But yeah, if the buttons are too close together, that's what gets me.
Well, see, I mean, yeah, and Aldous also said, like, well, maybe it's because the buttons are a little bit farther apart, which means that, if the buttons were closer together, it would have the pocket harmony, but it would look, weird to him. Those are all very valid things. I think, what it comes down to is, again, like the buying process, and for me, it's, like Spencer said, there's a lot of jackets that have the drop buttoning stance and are inharmonious and have the buttons that are too close together. So for me, a good rule of thumb is a jacket that has a pocket harmony. 7 out of 10 times it'll be a decent jacket, more so than a jacket that doesn't have it.
Because I mean, if it's like, even if the lapels, I think that just the buttoning stance, like the buttoning height, is really important, because I mean, once again, it's like the jackets they were talking about with the low buttoning stance and the buttons that are close together almost universally have awful lapels, but jackets with the buttoning harmony are probably going to have like a better stance. And even if the lapels aren't perfect, too wide, too skinny, whatever, it's going to look better. It's going to look fine.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, again, it comes to us buying on eBay, right, where you literally can't put it on, because I think that, a lot of this comes from guys taking a gamble, like all just, again, getting this jacket on the cheap, or even Doug with his $10
Well, because,
blazer.
I mean, all this also, like, I guess an important piece of context is up until last couple of months, he hasn't really bought anything on eBay.
Yeah, he as you guys remember from the uniform episode, he commissioned a lot of his stuff from Spear and McKay, and Spear, in those pictures, it looks like it has harmony. But so because Spencer and I weren't able, or we got started buying on eBay, we can't put it on, right? And we were relatively younger guys when we were buying this. We maybe didn't even have like a full-time job or even a job, because we were like in school, right? And so again, a good rule of thumb is, if we want to get a jacket on eBay, try and look for the button pocket harmony, because it'll lend itself to becoming a better jacket.
I mean, buying a bunch of stuff online is probably what gave us so many of these weird, like, purely like visual preferences, rather than like, oh, I like this, like I like this weight fabric, whatever, or like it did lead us to construct, or to focus a lot more on visuals than construction.
And if you guys, I mean, that's basically the theme of the blog, which is why there's a bunch of fucking pictures all the time, because it's all about looking at things, and again, this. Well, briefly, I want to talk about like the 60s. I think when we talked about that, even when you have wider spaced buttons, like on a sack jacket, they still have the harmony, at least in like the heyday type of stuff.
And it's like, the Brooks Brothers #1 sack suit does have a pretty high buttoning point, but it's a 3-roll too, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because I mean, at that point too, because we talked with Aldous about like, oh well, if you do it that way, then the buttoning point will be higher. I'm like, well, I have no problem wearing sack jackets. I don't think too much about buttoning point unless it's really low, because that's an inherent piece of buying vintage. Like, eras change on where things button, And before we talk more about our buying stuff and our deal breakers, I do want to say that I do not have this for double-breasted jackets. That is because double-breasted jackets, first off, are just a lot rarer to find in general. And when you look back, I mean, of course, you look back in the 1920s, 1930s, they will have harmony. But at some point in like the mid-30s, they started to go below the pocket line, the last button. They started to go beyond the pocket line. And it doesn't look bad. I think it's because it has like an overlapping nature. A DB technically buttons higher than a single-breasted jacket as well. And because it has the closed quarters, basically, it's overlapping and it's like a square end. Even if the button goes below that, it looks better to me, as opposed to, say, the curved quarters that don't overlap on a regular single-breasted jacket. I think there's a little bit of like that weird, you can compare it to the the proportions to your crotch or this visual distance or whatever, but on a DB you don't really have that. I think that's why for me I'm more forgiving on it. And if I had that for a DB, I would never buy a DB because it's very rare to find one.
I mean, I think our weird rule with DBs again goes back to button spacing.
But that's horizontal spacing.
Yeah, horizontal spacing, because it's like what we're talking about, and you've probably noticed this, but a lot of modern DB jackets, especially lower end mall brands, or even some higher end brands. J.Crew is well, I mean, yeah, like every mall brand does this, but the buttons are way too close together horizontally.
Yeah.
So I'm looking through this, and it's like, I mean, it's like, even I'd have to see the ring jacket from the front, because that looks like it's a little spaced too close together. But even
the brass button one.
No, the one that you include in the article.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, it's like that's the big deal for me with double-breasted jackets. The buttoning stance has to be a lot wider.
Yeah, I mean, and those all, again, the whole point of this is not about that the button pocket harmony is superior, even though it is, so shut the fuck up. But it is about finding what these deal breakers are, what these, what these preferences are, and learning the vocabulary early on, so that way it will define what you buy. This of course may not be as important to those of you who are listening who commission bespoke garments, because again, like I said, most bespoke tailors have all these in mind. I think that, yeah, I mean, maybe ring jacket might be a little bit narrow, but it's not bad compared to, say, a J.Crew one, right? Or maybe something from like H&M. And also with like button pocket harmony, they already have it inherently there, and so you don't really have to worry. This is more for guys who are buying on eBay, buying vintage, and it's a good rule of thumb, because what I've been noticing from people who message me after I teased this article, because I posted a little bit about it in preparation for, I guess if you want to call it a debate with Algis. You can also find the YouTube link to that discussion in the show notes, or the essay with this one. But it's that when they all can't unsee it now. And it's like, I wish people did see it, because that would, help guide you on how you purchase things. And Doug now was like, he apologized to me a couple days later. He's like, hey man, sorry I was getting really defensive, because I totally agree with you that it's an important detail, and it's like I can't unsee it. Again, it's not he's gonna throw away his $10 jacket, but it's that when moving forward, he's gonna make sure it's there, especially like Spencer said, if you're spending a lot of money on something, Yeah. And that's kind of what it is, because I would hate to have a jacket that always felt off to me, that I bought anyway, and then I realized, oh, that's why. It's kind of like you don't wear it anymore. Just kind of how you realize maybe that a super slim leg opening isn't flattering. Once you see how it looks, or even how a low rise is unflattering, you might be able to go, oh shit, well, next time I'll buy a higher waisted thing. And then, maybe then you'll keep it, and then you'll upgrade it when you have the chance later. I'm not telling you to throw out everything that doesn't have the bucket pocket harmony, but moving forward, if that's important to you,
have standards, god damn it. Yeah. No regrets.
So no regrets, not even one.
Yeah.
But so that's a big one for me. But let's talk about, for the last half hour of the show, what other deal breakers we may have, because I know we talked about this on stream a little bit, but now we can get into it. Just you and me, Spencer.
Just you and me. Yes, I mean, this is another thing that this wasn't on that stream, right? This was a separate thing.
What do you mean?
The topic, it was a stream. The deal breakers.
It was there.
No, but it was separate than the bucket harmony. The bottom.
Yeah.
What are we calling it?
It's the button pocket harmony. It's right there.
Or we could just call it harmony. Harmontown.
I do call it harmony as the harmony. It sounds like I'm fucking talking, like writing like a sci-fi novel or something.
Yeah, the flood. I've never played Halo.
You should. It's good.
Yeah, so let's talk about... I don't have an Xbox. Let's talk about things
It's on PC
that stop
now.
us from buying things. It's on PC now?
Yeah, I've been
You
seeing a lot of
kidding me?
clips. I've been seeing a lot of clips from Halo 3. It's awesome.
This is going to be a Halo podcast. Just kidding. I'm probably not going to get it. Let's talk about things that we can't buy. I guess I should start. I haven't been talking much. Everything's too long nowadays. Everyone makes things too long.
That is so correct.
Yeah, and this is
This is not talking about sport coats, which I personally like a longer jacket. That could be its own thing in the future sometime. But yeah, waistcoats are too long because they go like, you look at old pictures, man, and they're,
waistcoats were crazy short. They they hit. This is the case for a lot of things. Back in the day, like pre-1960s, is because jackets pants had a higher rise, so everything else was cropped to be proportional to that. So jackets were very short. They covered your waistband, and that was about it. But now but now they dip way too long, and it looks bad. Even on even on these great menswear brands, their vests are still too long. And it's going to stop me from buying 3-piece suits unless I go
because
vintage
unless a tailor can specifically tell me that they can do a shorter waistcoat, it's like, why bother? You know, it's
and
so
we've had
weird.
even vintage reproduction brands. We've talked about a lot about how we like SJC. We haven't bought stuff from them in a while. But they made these great workwear vests that I don't wear as much because it's too goddamn long.
Yeah, I got mine shortened, and I think it's still too long. I need to take it from the top now because it's ridiculous. It's selling for high-waisted pants. It just looks weird. It stops me from buying. I mean, I don't really wear waistcoats very often, but if you translate this to sweaters are also too long.
Sweaters, sweaters, sweatshirts, hoodies, everything. Because the rise of pants has gotten lower, so that's the real culprit. You got to get those pants back up. The jackets.
But the thing is,
jackets are
guys,
downstream from pants.
Yeah, the thing is, pants have gone back up, at least in the menswear contemporary world.
Yeah.
But the sweaters are still too long.
Mm-hmm. How's the length on the Anthology ribbed tee?
Oh, it's good. It's good.
It's good? Okay.
It's good. I think when I wrote that article, I was like, if people can make sweaters based on this length, I would buy sweaters from them. I think the only one I can think of is Rubato. Great stuff, really cool. If you haven't checked out Rubato on Instagram, made by Olivier Danafalk and Carl Pers, it's really cool. They only do it in lamb's wool, which of course we can't wear here. I love cotton knitwear. That's got to be a future episode once we get more of it, because it is really hard to find.
It's great. Knitwear. I mean, it's great for Southern California weather.
Sweaters are just too long. It's like they go crazily past the waistband of a trouser.
Do people like this? I feel like most of these things just look better when they just cover the waistband, but they're too long even with fucking low-rise trousers. Yeah, it doesn't even achieve that effect when you're wearing low-rise pants.
They paunch up a little bit. It's weird, you have to a lot of people fold it into itself. It's
or tuck it, which I've done a couple times. I have a bunch of merino wool sweaters or whatever that I got with a steep discount from J. Crew or Men's Warehouse or whatever. Yeah. But I either have to roll them up, which makes you look adds fucking 20 pounds, or you have to tuck them in, which looks kind of dorky depending on how you're wearing it.
Also, I mean, it's also one of those things where a skinny guy, skinnier than us, could probably pull it off better. But as average bodied guys, average Joe's gym, we don't get that kind of luxury of of looking good in baggier clothing. I mean, we like full cut stuff, but I mean, that's one thing that we should. Sweaters are one thing that we need to take in a little bit, or lift up, and maybe get make look back at the 30s and 40s and see how they did it. I mean, if people just could reproduce that in cotton, everything's fixed. And especially you said, do people like this? What about ties, dude? Ties are so fucking long. What the fuck's going on? It's crazy.
I mean, I guess people like doing the tucking them in, but
which
it's
I do. I like that.
That's a solution to an easily fixable problem.
Yeah, think of how much material you could save and how many more ties you could make if you just made them like 5 inches shorter or whatever.
Because I feel like, I mean, I don't do it a whole lot because most of my ties are vintage and thus short. But the tie tuck doesn't seem like it's super good for ties either.
Yeah, because then over time you'll probably
it's gonna be fucking rubbing against your waistband constantly.
So for me, I don't do the tie and I tuck in both. I usually tie the front end to be the right length, and then I tuck in the back blade. But I'm very scared that like my Drake's ties or whatever will get like fucking like gnarred up.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Gnarred up?
You know what else?
G-N-A-R-E-D.
I mean, I think all of our buying stuff is like weird proportional stuff, like length or whatever. But casual jackets all too long across the board. Well, not across the board. Short coats, things that are meant to be a little bit longer, more like sport coats, are fine. But yeah, like denim jackets, leather jackets. Again, even good brands like Himmel Brothers, Bryceland's.
At least in ready to wear. At least in ready to wear. They're always too long. They go beyond, not the pocket line, but they go beyond the waistline.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why a lot of my casual clothes are still vintage, and that's
same here.
I still get most of my clothes from like fucking flea markets and eBay.
I mean, I never get like when people are like, oh yeah, buy the shot perfecto. I mean, like, man, when you look at fucking like old pictures of the guys working biker jackets, they end at the waist. They end at the waist. And it
looks so good. Like that's what really gives you an athlete. That's really what elongates your legs, gives you like an athletic figure. It looks great.
Yeah, and yet people don't see this. It's either that people don't care about it as much, which is most likely the case here, because when you're thinking about a biker jacket, you think about, black with a double rider closure. You don't think black double rider closure, and it's also short. People don't see that. But it's like once you do see it, it's hard to like not see any other way.
It's like I see leather jacket. And I mean, it's like, okay, so this is trying to look like an A2 or whatever, but it just doesn't. It doesn't look right.
Yeah, it's just same thing with like a sweater. If it's too long, it looks too baggy, right? I think it's just because it doesn't have that kind of fitted waist thing. I mean, recently,
this is, you could call this the jacket waistcoat or the jacket trouser harmony. Like this is really where it's at. Everything has to be in harmony, man. Your outfit has to be harmonious.
Exactly. You have to have the capital H harmony. Yeah, take a shot every time you see me type in harmony with a capital H in the article. You'll probably die of alcohol poisoning. But I mean, it's all about like those classic like masculine, if you want to call it that, masculine proportions. And even recent to the time of this recording, not too recent to when you'll hear this, but Permanent Style wrote about like categorizing, high-waisted pants, the rise of different pants. And yeah, high-waisted has like a kind of a classic masculine look that lends itself to be, better situated. It also makes you look slimmer because it's higher. The small of your waist is better higher up on your body, and the small of your back as well. So yeah, casual jackets. I don't think I own any modern casual short jacket. I'm not talking about short coats.
No, I don't think I do.
Short coats, in fact, I prefer my short coats longer because I like them to be jacket alternatives. I have a couple ones that are more like shirt jackets, but I still wear them because I guess I don't care that much for them.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't care about the detail that much for them. But like on a leather jacket, on a gabardine short jacket, I guess that's the two things I wear. But with those things, they have to end at or near the waist. And again, I guess we can put a lot. I mean, this one doesn't really have particular show notes for that kind of thing. But I'll include the link to the leather jacket article, which has a lot of examples or, showing off how good a crop jacket is. And at the time of this recording, I was on MFA, and MFA has a weird thing now where they've done away with simple questions as a standalone thread. Now you can submit whatever you want. So the whole front page is all questions now, which is
Jesus. That seems like a bad decision.
Hey, but people are complaining that they feel left out. So a lot of it is, I'm going to a wedding. What do I wear? Whatever. Things that people have been asking since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
But one of them was, hey, what do you call, what's up with these 80s jackets? I've noticed that these are cut a lot shorter, or the sleeves are a lot longer than the body. And I responded saying, well, these are basically meant for high-waisted pants. You can look at old trucker jackets, old leather jackets, they all kind of follow that. And a lot of casual jackets follow that for a while. Even in the 80s and 90s, you still found them. They're not as common because they got bigger and baggier over the years. But, that's kind of where it is. If you like a high-waisted trouser, it lends itself to you should prefer a cropped length jacket.
Yeah.
What other deal breakers do we have? I think that's some of the big ones.
This is going to be pretty obvious, but yeah, shirts, any inner lining for the most part is a deal breaker, unless it's a tux shirt.
But even then, I think I have the ultimate one where my tux shirt has a soft collar.
Yeah. It's I would love to have a soft collar tuxedo shirt, but that's the one shirt where it doesn't need to be a soft collar.
Exactly.
I guess the only time I would want it to not be a soft collar tuxedo shirt is if it's a detachable collar. But
when are you gonna wear that?
Exactly, because I don't know. This is the very niche thing. I hate how attached collar, wingtip collar shirts look. I don't think the collar ever goes high enough for it to not just look like your collar's kind of fucked up.
Right.
It looks like you just tied your tie over your collar. The points are sticking out. But shirts, any inner lining, I don't like, because the two types of dress shirts I wear are supposed to look like 30s spear point shirts.
Yeah.
Which did not typically have inner lining because that technology was very new. I think
they were Sanfordized, which means they were stiff. But even then, over time, they're not like a stiff collar.
Exactly.
As much as a tuck shirt
Exactly.
Or
I would just wear OCBDs, which obviously don't lend themselves to.
They should be soft. People have been
spear points. But
same here.
Because I have a shirt. One of my early things from Natty shirts. This is so I asked specifically for non-lined collar and cuffs, but I didn't specify the placket. And so even though the collar is unlined, the placket isn't, and it doesn't sit right. So everything has to be unlined. Everything.
Yeah. Collar, cuffs, and placket need to have no interlining. Soft as hell. It should be no surprise to you guys that we like softer stuff because we have a slouchy approach to slouchy approach to menswear, vintage menswear, whatever you want to call it, tailoring. And one essence of doing that not just in the shoulders of your jacket, but how stiff your collar is. And so for me, I like a soft collar. My spear points are almost always softer. Some of them have interlining because I think early on I didn't think that was a big deal, but of course now it is, and as a result I don't wear those very often. I still wear them because I still like wearing spear points. But if I could control it, which I can because I get bespoke shirts now, they are softer because the tie feels better with them. Of course, if you have a stiff collar and you're wearing a tie, the friction there will ruin the tie over time. That happens with ties regardless. But it's better when the neck is softer, the collar band is softer, and the collar points and everything. And in terms of OCBDs, they were classically unlined. They were classically soft, and that's why we like vintage ones over modern ones because, of course, there are modern ones like Mercer and Sons or the Brooks Brothers. Whenever they remade the original polo shirt. But the thing is, if you're thrifting, it can be kind of hard to find a soft collar or at least a not just an inlining, but a non-iron or a non-iron one, because non-iron shirts, if you don't know, are treated with formaldehyde, so they have this kind of treatment where they retain stiffness and make it easily ironable or not as wrinkled as a shirt that did not have that treatment. But as a result, the shirt just feels faker. It doesn't. It may not have polyester in it, but it feels like it because of how stiff and how weird it feels. And so that, as a bunch of guys, who like being slouchy, having a little bit of wrinkles in your shirting, it's a little inharmonious to that mentality.
But also just talking comfort. Like we talked about this in the lockdown, what we're wearing episode.
Yeah.
But I'm wearing, a lot of like vintage Oxford shirts, or today a newer purchase. I got a 40s work shirt in. It is so soft. It's like so comfortable to wear around the house, whatever. Like it's like, you typically only see inner lining or whatever on dressier shirts. But you can't just fucking relax in one of those, man.
No, you can't. And I think that's, it comes with wanting to be comfortable and slouchy in your clothes and not making them become like a costume in a sense. Because a lot of people, when they have that, they want to look presentable. They want to look super stiff. And that's fine if that's what you want. But then that kind of runs off to making it hard to wear tailoring casually. And I think that a lot of guys would embrace it more if the clothes they had was just a lot softer. I mean, collars, shirt collars should be softer, pockets should be softer. If I want to talk briefly about when you're thrifting jackets, having softer or little to no shoulder pads is kind of a big deal. Again, when you're buying stuff from like Spear and McKay or commissioning or getting ring jacket or bespoke, that's typically something that you're not going to have a problem with. But if you are thrifting or buying on eBay, well, I guess it's harder to figure out on eBay, but if you're thrifting, check it out, check how the collar feels on it, check the fabric composition, see if it says non-iron on it, see if it has polyester. I mean, we'll get into that briefly in a second, and feel the shoulder pads of a jacket, because sometimes when I'm thrifting, to help MJ find a jacket, or our friends Andy, maybe we'll find a 3-roll-2 jacket, but if it's got heavy shoulder pads, maybe best to skip it, unless you want to spend the extra time learning how to take it out yourself, or, what do you call it?
Taking
surgery. It to a tailor. Taking it to a tailor and
I mean, like, once again, the point of this episode is not saying if you have, a shirt with a lined collar or you have a fucking Levi's trucker that's too long. We're not saying get rid of that, but what you should be developing is very specific tics like this. Because people say, like, people always tell me.
That was almost like that was Ben Shapiro. I was say Ben Shapiro.
Does Trump say that? I think he always says people are.
Many
are saying this.
Is that a Trump impression?
He's been our president for 4 years. I watch the news frequently. I don't know why I can't figure out his vocal tics. But I mean, anyway,
we're doing impressions all the time.
Yeah, but develop these things for yourself. Figure out like what your deal breakers are, because people tell Ethan and I, it's like, oh, how do you, get better at searching on eBay or thrifting? But it's like when you have all these things, it's like fucking there's only going to be so much that fits your standards. And maybe you think that's limiting, but guess what? It's like also, I don't know, like you're not going to have as much buyer's remorse. You're going to have more money.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if you think it's limiting, look at my fucking wardrobe. It is. Yeah, it's
huge. Like, it's not limiting. It's just, we have standards. We have very high standards for the things that we wear.
Maybe this is also an exercise of, when you're doing this, it makes, for expanding on what we did with the Young Chomsky, anti-consumerism in a sense, because, a lot of people, I'm not going to point any fingers, but, some people feel the need to buy things that are on their list and always constantly be searching, and I can see that, I get a serotonin release whenever I cross tasks off of my whiteboard I have to do, but clothing shouldn't be a task like that. I think that, you shouldn't be searching for like the ultimate version of your wardrobe. It should be a very aesthetically, personally driven endeavor. And so if you have that in there, it's like, I don't think it would be fun to like find out the best Chinese place and eat every Chinese food. But if you find out what you want from a Chinese restaurant, it makes a search for that and the process a lot more fun,
Absolutely. And I mean, as you said, I've never felt limited. It's just, I know what I like. Because it's not like, oh man, I wish this jacket didn't, had the harmony, or I wish this jacket.
And I'm mad every time I wear it or whatever. Yeah.
But I don't feel that way. I say, oh, this doesn't have this, so I'm not gonna like it. Even if I like all the other details, I know that because of this, I'm not gonna like it in the end.
Yeah, I mean,
it makes shopping easier, frankly.
Everyone has these. The thing,
Yeah.
if these aren't yours, then that's fine. Continue doing what you're doing. But I'm telling you, there is something out there that prevents you from doing it. And a lot of people have said, doesn't have to be the button pocket harmony, but a lot of people tend to like buy stuff, especially early on, and then they'll realize something's just off about it, and that prevents them from wearing it, which is going to happen. No matter what. I think that maybe. Spencer, I mean,
it's like, we have ways to shield ourselves from buyer's remorse, but that doesn't mean we never experience it, although we experience it very rarely.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, if you're listening to this and you develop these tics early on, you'll have less mistakes, because I've spent money, again, there's no pictorial evidence of it, but I have had some jackets that I just didn't like because the buttoning was too low, or I couldn't get over this, or maybe the jacket length was too short, because again, that's also a thing. A lot of modern jackets from like Suit Supply are just too short, and I felt like I had to get it because it was the only place I could find it. But here's the thing, guys. If you are constantly opening your eyes to everything, not just vintage, not just eBay, but looking on Grailed, looking on Etsy, also looking at Spear and McKay, looking at Ring Jacket, looking at everything, then you'll never feel like it's limiting, because you'll be looking at so many different avenues of places to obtain your clothing. If you want to talk about that, then it's like, well, then maybe have an exercise in saving up for the thing you really want, instead of cheaping out and buying the Suit Supply one that's only 2 buttons when you prefer a 3-roll 2 with a wider lapel.
Exactly.
So I can understand that if your only options are to use eBay, maybe that navy blue jacket with brass buttons that only has 2 buttons and it's a little bit lower might be your only option. Don't think of it that way. Maybe don't buy it right away. Wait till you see the other one, or maybe in a couple of months or so, you'll find that version made by Ring Jacket or made by Spear and McKay. It's not going to be an end all if you don't get it right away. And I think that's also one thing people
maybe
should
this
learn.
is a topic for another episode, just about buying habits, which I think we have something kind of like that
on the stream,
in the works.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I have a very vague list in my head of things that I would want. Like, right now I'm like, I'd like Alden penny loafers or whatever, or I'd like a beret. But it's not like I don't have on my fucking calendar, it's like Monday, search for beret, and then I'm not going to buy anything until I find that beret. I have a couple things that's like, if I come across this and it's up to my standards, I would like it.
Yep.
But it's nothing like, in order to complete my wardrobe, I need this piece.
Yeah, I mean, again, this could just be a difference in buying philosophy and also approach to menswear. But hopefully, the more we talk about this, this is kind of probably one of the first ever podcast episodes that we've kind of verbalized our buying habits. I mean, maybe we talked about it a little bit on the shoes one, when I talk about how I like a lower vamp, and that's why I don't buy Meerman, because Meerman has a higher vamp for tassels and pennies. But again, this is something you guys should think about. It is something that is very important, that again lends itself to creating a wardrobe that truly makes you happy. That's something that Spencer and I can say, and we have a lot of things, and we do have buyer's remorse, but I don't think that we ever, at least in the past 2 years at the very least, we don't really have bricked purchases. I really don't think that we do. Maybe there are things that we bought and maybe we found that we didn't like it aesthetically, maybe like, I have it, like me with my Lee 101J, I have it. It's still not something I break out yet, but maybe it's because I haven't gotten a big appreciation for that jacket yet. It's not a bad purchase. I know I'll wear it, but it's, it's a different kind of thing. So, keep an open mind. Know what you're looking for. I mean, I like my Lee 101J more than a Levi's Trucker. Why? Because of the slanted, rounded breast pockets. Like, that is something cool. They're also like a fucking jungle jacket. Why is that cooler to us? You could say, yeah, there are a lot of olive fatigue shirt jackets out there. BDUs from the 90s. I know I started out with that one. But immediately I was like, you know what? It's just not the same as a jungle jacket.
Exactly.
It's just not the same. And, it was like $10. And it wasn't that much buyer's remorse because I gave it to MJ. Or was it Andy?
Yeah.
I forgot who
I mean, it's like, that's the other thing.
And they love it.
Like, we resell stuff or give it away.
Yeah, we give it away, depending on whichever one it is. Again, plug the marketplace on the Discord. But it's one of those things where, develop your taste. And the thing is, taste is always going to change. So, don't look for the perfect version of it. Don't let it limit you. Just kind of be aware it's all a spectrum, baby. And what you like now may not be what you like later, but hey, buy for what you like right now.
I mean, even if that's the case, I feel like there's still like a through line. Because I've been looking at my old Inspiration album that I started building in like high school because I recently imported it to my PC to clear up some space on my phone. And it's like, yeah, these images that I saved like, like 5, 6, 7 years ago sometimes. There's a lot of stuff where it's like, yeah, like bold luck stuff or just like vintage stuff that I just saved even if I didn't really like it, just so I could, kind of absorb the details. But there's still a lot of stuff in here like, oh, okay, so I've always been into like these color tones, or I've always been into like this kind of like, I don't know, like a slightly more rugged look, whatever. It's, even if your taste changed, there's still going to be a through line.
Exactly. So find out what exactly makes that taste. That's something that Spencer and I have done. We haven't been in this as long as, let's say, Kyoshi for about 10 years. But, for the past like 5 years or so, we've gone through a lot of evolution. And it all comes down to us knowing what we like and being able to verbalize it and write. And for me, it helps by when I write it down because I can actually literally find out what that is. So if I could finish this off, I would say that make sure that your jacket has the button and the pocket, the last button and the pocket line in harmony, and you will thank me later. And look at it. You can't unsee it, baby. You can't.
Or maybe you're the opposite of us and you hate jackets with the harmony. And if that's the case, that's weird, but you do you. Only buy jackets with a low buttoning stance.
Yeah, or at least a lower visual buttoning stance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that'll do it. So guys, thank you for listening to this episode. So yeah, I hope you guys, find out what the button harmony is for you. I mean, I know I sounded like I'm fucking obsessed, but it's because I am. I mean, it's like a quiet obsession. It's like it's hiding behind the surface, and I apologize.
But if you show Ethan a jacket without it,
yeah,
he's gonna say it's bad, and then you're gonna get offended.
Yep.
And make a group chat that you're in with him just completely unusable for a week.
Yeah, just don't bring it up. Just know that
don't bring it up.
Yeah, just know that I have these things. Well, if you guys want to follow us on Instagram, my Instagram is @EthanMWong.
I'm Spencer DSO,
and you can follow the Instagram of the podcast and technically our stream because we're streamers as well. You can follow us on Instagram @StyleAndDirection, all spelled out. Speaking of streaming, we stream twice a week on Wednesday and Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Sometimes it's casual, sometimes we have some big topics, sometimes we do AMAs. Lots of fun in there. You get to watch Spencer play Red Dead, MJ play Final Fantasy, or occasionally us just play Modern Warfare. That's 8 p.m. twitch.tv/StyleAndDirection, all spelled out. And again, we do those shows. You can join us in the chat, or you can join in the show itself by talking in the Discord channel. Whoa,
that's correct.
Discord.
Yes.
And to get access to Discord, what do you got to do, Spencer?
You got to sign up for a Patreon, of course, which we launched. I don't know why I'm talking about when we launched it, but I mean it's kind of new. June, but yeah, there's a bunch of great benefits. We have a couple bonus episodes. We're gonna do
once a month,
bonus episode every month for our subscribers. We just had a movie watch. I don't know if we could say that. We just watched a movie.
Yeah.
You Only Live Twice, which is going to be the subject of our next bonus episode.
Which comes out at the end of this month.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're in the Discord right now to record the episode. We post eBay links.
Lots of eBay links.
Outfits of the
Lots
day.
of eBay.
Yeah, there's a lot of good discussion.
Yeah, and all you gotta do...
It's like, yeah. I mean, it's like not that small a group. We got like over 30 people in there already, and yeah, it's just getting bigger, Just
getting bigger. What's that feel like? So yeah, to join it, you have to go to patreon.com/StyleAndDirection. Again, it's always spelled out. I don't think you can use an ampersand anywhere in like a
which sucks
username.
Because that's how our logo is stylized.
Yeah, I wrote as a marketing person. I wrote the brand book in my head, and I said you have to use an ampersand. So
yeah, but
yeah,
we can't do that in links.
No, we can't. But yeah, join there. It's $5 a month, and there's also a tier for $10 a month, which gives you the same benefits, but get a shout out from us, and especially our gratitude, because again, we could not do these without our, not just our regular sad heads, but our Sadcast fanatics, which include Seth Peterson, Austin Malott, Eric Hall, and Shane Curry. A lot of these guys are very active in the Discord, and we know Austin and Shane in a real life, kind of. I mean, I've talked to Austin, yeah. So great stuff. Thank you to you guys, and thank you to everyone who listens to the show and is a patron or not. Hey, it's up to you guys if you want to support us. But we thank you guys either way. If you can't,
but don't expect us to say your name unless you're giving us $10 a month.
That's right. That's right.
We're never gonna say your name.
And yeah, but it would also help us if you wanted to give us a review. That would help too.
Exactly. Yeah. If you can't give money, giving us a rating on iTunes or even just telling a friend about it, it's gonna be great. We don't advertise anywhere, obviously, so the only way that the podcast grows is word of mouth.
That's right.
And ratings really help with that. So
that's right. So I guess that'll do it. Thank you to MJ and Matt for being producers of the show, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.